Back in 2004, the debt limit was $7 trillion. In the past 5 years, Congress has voted to increase it 6 times. And now the big spenders in Washington are pleading to raise it once again. What this tells us is that as long as Congress can keep raising the limit on how much they can spend, they will keep spending more than we can afford. When the debt limit was voted on in 2006, then Senator Obama voted against raising it, and his reason for doing so made sense. He said, raising America's debt limit is a sign of leadership failure. I agree with this sentiment. But now that he's president, he wants to continue on this path of fiscal irresponsibility. His views have shifted, and he says raising the debt ceiling is necessary for our economic well-being. I disagree. We need to get control of federal spending before we consider raising the debt limit. What good is it to set a debt limit that we ignore time after time? How much higher can we raise the debt limit without instituting any spending restraints whatsoever? Despite our fiscal crisis, we have people here in Washington still willing to mortgage our children's future by funding things we do not need and simply cannot afford. That's why legislation like the Balanced Budget Amendment is so vitally important. We need an ironclad rule that restrains government spending and forces Congress to be responsible with taxpayer dollars. I've sponsored just such a bill with Senators Mike Lee and Jim DeMint. Without a balanced budget amendment in place, the debt ceiling will continue to move in only one direction, up. Passage of a balanced budget amendment is absolutely necessary in order to get our nation's fiscal house in order. Families around the country must balance their own budgets, and even many state legislatures are required to do so. Kentucky's state legislature has to balance its budget every year. It's time to hold Congress accountable to balance the federal budget, and I will work to ensure that this conversation takes place. Those who wish to maintain the business-as-usual status quo of uncontrollable, unchecked federal spending are using fear to try to convince us that if we do not raise the limit, all will be lost. But the truth is, if we keep spending like there's no tomorrow, we will have a crisis that harms all Americans, and it will truly devastate our economy. Before long, our debt will consume our entire domestic output. America does have a debt problem. It is a failure of leadership to not address that problem head on, and that means dealing with the massive spending and not pushing this burden off onto future generations. America deserves better.